Hey everyone, it's Russell Brunson. Welcome to a special Marketing Secrets episode where I'm going to let you guys see behind the scenes at one of our presentations from last year's Funnel Hacking Live.
So the big question is this: how are entrepreneurs like us, who didn't cheat and take on venture capital, who are spending money from our own pockets, how do we market in a way that lets us get our products and our services and the things that we believe in out to the world and yet still remain profitable? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Russell Brunson, and welcome to Marketing Secrets.
All right, so this presentation is one that I was really nervous about giving. It was called One Funnel Away, which was the whole theme of the last Funnel Hacking Live event, and it's something that I wanted to share my failures, my bankruptcy stories, the ups and the downs. Everyone here talks about the highlight reel. I wanted to share the other side of it. And I don't typically release sessions from Funnel Hacking Live anywhere, but this one had such a big impact on our audience and help people know that everyone, including me, especially me, has big ups and big downs, yet literally we were just one funnel away from success each time. And so as we were preparing for next year's Funnel Hacking Live, which will be coming live soon at funnelhackinglive.com, I was kind of rewatching some of the presentations. I saw this one, I was like, I want more people to have this. So I'm going to break this episode into 2 episodes. This is episode number 1. Go check it out and leave me a comment if you like it. Please subscribe, tell other people about it, and hopefully it'll give you some hope and some faith that the path you are on is right and that this process is going to get you what you want and what you desire and let you have the ability to serve other people. So that's the game plan now. Check out this episode, and I'll see you on part 2 tomorrow. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to go on a journey with you guys, my journey, which started way back over here on my timeline and my backstory. So those who know me or have heard about me or know anything about this, I got started, initially I started learning about business when I was a 12 or 13-year-old kid, sitting there with my dad. He was watching the news and I was watching it with him, and I was sitting there, I'm like, I can't believe he hasn't told me to go to bed yet. This is the coolest thing in the world. And the news was on, and then when the news ended, then MASH came on, and I was like, he must think I'm asleep or something. Like, he hasn't told me to go to bed, and I'm sitting there like trying to move. I don't want him to know. And so I'm watching MASH with my dad. I thought it was the coolest thing in the whole world. And then when MASH got done, like, he still like didn't say anything. I'm like, he's got to be convinced I'm asleep. This is so cool. And then the next thing came on, and it was an infomercial, late night infomercial with Don the Pre. How many of you guys remember Don the Pre? Yes. Just an amazing person, and he had an infomercial, and I was so grateful for him and for his passion, his excitement, talking about what he was doing. And he was talking, the infomercial about how to place tiny little classified ads and you can make a fortune, right? And it was, God, it was the coolest thing. I remember sitting there listening to him, and I was like, this makes so much sense. I'm looking at my dad like, you paying attention to what's happening? Like, this guy is, the whole thing made so much sense to me. He said, I took a classified ad, I put it in a newspaper, and I made $30. And I told my friends and my family, like, I started a business, I made $30 this week, and they all laughed at me. He's like, so then I took that same ad, and I ran it in 1,000 newspapers the next month, and I made $30,000. And I was just like, mind blown. And I've been ruined from that day on when it came to the world. I'm like, I can't not do something like this. I was so excited. I saved a bunch of money, mowing lawns and everything, and eventually I bought Don the Priest Kid on an infomercial. I read through it all, I learned it, and I wasn't able to actually do anything though because I didn't have money to do direct mail and all sorts of things like that. But that's how I first heard about direct response marketing. I remember after I got Don the Priest Kid, I got so excited. I was at the grocery store with my mom one time, and we were walking out, and on the checkout stand there was a magazine. It was called Small Business Opportunity Magazine. Had a whole bunch of little cartoon people in front of it. How many of you guys have seen that magazine before? That's it? This is like the greatest like swipe file of direct response ads ever. So I didn't know at the time though, I was just like, there's like 30 things talking about how to get rich quick. And I'm like, sweet, I want to get rich quick. That'd be awesome. So I had my mom buy me this magazine. I went home, and if you look at it, it's like 140 pages of ads and 4 pages of articles. It's pretty awesome. And so I'm looking at every single ad, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can sell gold chains at the mall and make money. It's like, call this 1-800 number for free info kit. I'm like, yeah, free info kit sent to my house. And then like the next page, it's like something else. And page after page, all 140 pages, I called every single 800 number to request the free info kit. And about a week later, I started getting these gifts in the mail. First it was like 2 or 3 letters, then it was like 10 or 15 letters, then it was like 60 or 70 letters. And I think those people started selling my name to other mailing lists, because soon it became like hundreds of letters. And the mailman could not physically shove the junk mail in the mailbox anymore because there was so much coming in. So I'd get home from junior high, and I'd come home, and I'd walk into the house, and I see on the bar, I see 2 or 3 letters from my parents and Russell's stack of junk mail. And they're like, there's your junk mail. I was like, oh, and I take it in my room, and I'd open it, and I like read these things. I'm like, this is so cool. And all these money-making ideas. So that happened at a young age. Unfortunately, again, I couldn't do anything. Well, I tried once. So this one person convinced me that like direct mail was the key. And like all you do is you get a list of buyers who bought similar products, and you write a sales letter and you mail it to those people, and a percentage will buy. And I'm like, awesome. Only problem is I can't afford a mailing list. And I don't have any stamps or any envelopes or anything. And so I'd done something. I'd made a little bit of money doing some chores, and I asked my mom to go take that money and instead buy stamps and bring me home stamps. So she brought me home 38 stamps. That's how much money I had made. And I had 38 stamps, and I was like, this is so awesome. I used to tell my brothers and sister and parents always used to tease, well, not my parents didn't tease me, my brothers and my sister did, because I'd always like, I'm going to be a millionaire any minute now. And like, this is going to work. And they used to be like, oh, are you a millionaire yet? Oh, and like totally make fun of me, right? So I had these 38 stamps. I'm like, okay, if I can get 10% of these people to buy, that's 3 people. If I sell a $50 product, it's $150. I was like, God, like, I'll be rich. So I didn't know what to do. And so they talked about sales letters. And so I was like, I write sales letters. I printed it out on blue paper. So I made blue paper to be more likely to read. So I went on my parents' computer. I wrote a little sales letter. I printed out 38 copies of it. And I couldn't afford an envelope, so I just folded it and stapled it. And then I didn't actually have a mailing list, so I just opened the white pages and flipped through and randomly picked 38 names. I'm like, this is gonna be huge. So I wrote it, put my stamp on, and all my savings, put in the mailbox, and I was just like, I am gonna be rich. This is gonna be amazing. I sent it out, told everybody, like, when this comes back, it's over. Like, I'll be able to move out, have my own house. It's gonna be amazing. And unfortunately, nobody responded. So that was the only time I was able to invest. I didn't have the money to even buy a classified ad in a newspaper. So I just kind of, after that, I just kept reading all this junk mail and learning from all these people. And then a couple years later, I got into wrestling, and I kind of forgot about making money. But there was this seed that had been planted. So I wrestled through high school, had a lot of fun, got a college scholarship. I wrestled through college. And when I was going to college, met my insanely beautiful wife, who most of you guys, if not, she's right here hiding. So... and met her and fell in love really, really quick. And I spent the next like 3 or 4 months trying to convince her. In fact, it was probably the hardest sell I ever had, to convince her that I was the right one. And luckily, she said, "Do you see that picture?" I was kind of a geek, not gonna lie. Anyway, convinced her to marry me, and it was amazing. And about the time we got engaged, I realized my dad said, "Well, when you get married, like I'm not gonna keep supporting you, like." That's when you become a real man, and you have to like, I'm like, what? But but Dad, like I'm wrestling and they're covering my school, but he'd always send me money to pay for food and stuff. And he's like, no, like if you get married, like you're kind of on your own. Like, I'm like, crap, I want to get married, but I don't want to like grow up yet. Dang it. And my wife was, fiance at the time, wife now, she was working and she was making money, and then she got a second job to support us. And I was just like, wrestling, I'm like, I don't have any money. And so I'm like, well, I gotta do something. And then luckily, the greatest thing in the world happened. That happens to a lot of us. I was up late at night stressing out about this, and then this little thing popped up on TV. It was an infomercial. And it was this guy talking about how people are making money with these little websites, and that they were doing an event at Holiday Inn like the next day, and that you could come and get tickets to it. I'm like, oh, this is it. So I like call the number, get my tickets to Holiday Inn. I show up to Holiday Inn. It's like a little tiny room with like 50 really, really like desperate people sitting there. and I get in there, and there's a dude on stage who's all like in a suit and tie, and I'm like, whoa, that guy looks rich. And then he started doing his thing, and within like 5 minutes, he closed me on like this $50 thing. And so I ran the back, and I had my one credit card. I think I had like a $300 like credit, like that was it. That's all I had earned so far. So I bought my $50 thing. I ran back, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make so much money with this. And then he pitched just on a website, which was like $3,000. And I was like, oh, and everyone's running back buying websites. I'm like, oh, I can't afford a website, dang it. And they pitched website hosting at $80 a month and all these things. And so like, and then they're teaching me like, hey, if you call your bank, you can get your credit extended. I'm like, oh, sweet, I didn't know that. So I'm calling the bank like, hey, can you make my card $1,000? Like, learning all these things. And so getting my credit card bigger, and which was kind of cool. And then I bought everything he told me. I'm like, all right, I need the whole thing. So I buy it all. And he convinced me, he's like, PayPal's evil. He's like, you have to have a merchant account. There's $6,000 for merchant account. I'm like, I don't have $6,000 yet. He's like, well, you can't make money online without a merchant account. It's $6,000. I'm like, but I couldn't afford that, but I had everything else. So then I went home. I was like, cool, I got a domain name. I got hosting, $1,000 worth of internet web stuff. And then we jumped online, and I was like, I'm gonna have a website. And I was getting excited. I started Googling some things, and eventually within about 15 minutes, I realized that website hosting is not $80 a month. I realized that the domain name is not like $1,000. I was like, oh crap. Like I got taken like for all these, and I was just like, I was freaked out. And so I ended up calling the next day and I was like, hey, yeah, so my son is a minor and he was at your event last night and he charged all his credit cards and he needs to be out of this contract. And they got me out of the contract and gave me my money back. So that's one trick if you ever need to get out of a contract. It's worked almost every time. So those are the real .com secrets. All right, so I got a contract, but at that point, like I was like, oh my gosh, like I just need to sell stuff on the internet. And so that started this thing about the time my wife and I were getting ready to get married, and I was like trying to sell stuff, and I was selling like all sorts of different things. I remember initially I thought maybe it's eBay, like people make money on eBay, and I remember driving to the thrift store, buying everything that I could find that I thought was worth value, and then like on my bike with like grocery sacks full of crap, like driving my bike back home, and I remember like about a Michael Jackson record, because I'm like, dude, records are so old, this has got to be worth like hundreds of dollars. I ended up selling it for 13 cents on eBay. I was so depressed. Anyway, and all these things, and I was like, and I was boxing them and I was shipping these things out, and like when all was said and done, I think I made like $40 or $50, but my costs were like $150, $200, and it was like I was going to trying to find boxes to box all these weird things I bought, and it was just a horrible thing. And I'm sitting at the post office with like 18 different boxes of weird things, like records and like, all these things. And there's this dude standing there with a big, huge like box full of CDs, like hundreds and hundreds of CDs. And I'm here with like a wheelbarrow full of like odd boxes. I'm like, dude, what are you selling? He's like, oh, I sell information products. I was like, what does that mean? He's like, all these CDs have info burned on them. People pay me and I ship them a CD. I'm like, is it the same CD? He's like, yeah, I have a CD burner. I just burn them. And then I put them in these things and I send them out. I was like, are you kidding me? They're all the same size. I could like buy one box and just like, it'd be so much easier. And so that's when we started talking about information products. I was like, I didn't know that was even a thing. And so I got all excited about information products. And so I started Googling stuff and started learning about how information products. And I ended up finding this CD. It was a CD that had like 8,000 coloring book pages for kids. And the guy was selling it. So I emailed him. I was like, dude, this CD's cool. Like, I was like, can I buy the rights from the CD so I want to sell it? And he was like, I've never done that before, but sure, for $200, I'll sell you the rights and you can sell it too. I'm like, oh, sweet. So I gave him $200 I didn't have, and he gave me the rights, and he had the CD, and then basically all I do is I had to burn it on a CD burner, and I could mail it out as many times as I wanted. And he had a big, long sales letter he let me use, so I put his sales letter up, and I started trying things. And what was cool is I started making sales. Not a lot, like every other week we make a sale for $20. And then I'd go burn a CD, and I put it in an envelope, and I ship it out. And I was just like, this is so cool. Like information products became like the thing, and I was trying to figure out how that whole thing worked. And that's why I started bumping into people like Yannick Silver and all these different internet marketing gurus and watching what they were doing selling information products, and I was just hooked at that point. And about that time, I started watching what they were doing and started learning, and I started creating different things that my flashlight's still on. Sorry about that. And I started creating things. In fact, one of my very first products ever, does anybody in this room remember the product Zip Brander? Yeah, like 3 people. VJ does. So I had all these info products, and I was buying resale rights to other people's products, and I was selling these things. And I remember, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a way where, when I sent this digital file to somebody, if when they first open it, instead of just getting the file, they would see an ad for my product, and then they see the file. And I was like, that was my first light bulb. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was like, it's like zipping a file, but you'd zip it and they'd be branded, so when they open it, they'd see your ad first. I was like, this is I thought it was it. Like, that is my idea. This is gonna change the world as we know it, right? And so I bought zipbrander.com, and I remember Armin Morin at the time was one of the guys I was studying, and I was just like, Armin is so cool. Like, every one of his sites looked very similar. They were so cool. And I'm looking, and Armin's site, he had a big header graphic with his picture, like his arm folded with a suit coat on. I was like, oh, dude, that's what I need. So I got a picture of me folding my arms in a suit coat, and he had this header, and so I had a header looked just like his. His was always e-cover generator, and so I was ZipBrander looked identical. And then this is where my funnel hacking started. So he had this big long sales letter. I'm like, that looks weird, but Armin's doing it, so I'm gonna do it. So I looked at his sales letter, I wrote my own based on that, and then I was like, how do I create this? I didn't know that, and so my first thought is oh, well, I should just become a computer engineer. That'd be the coolest thing. I want to make software, so I switched my major to computer information systems so I could learn how to code, right? It was about the time the semester was changing. So I get to class the first day, and teacher gets up there and starts talking about code and databases and all these things, structures, and I was sitting there oh crap, Like, I have no idea what he's talking about, like not even a little bit. And within about 15 seconds, I realized that I'm not a coder and never will be a coder. Couldn't even understand. I thought like I was a Spanish class or something, and I'm just like, I don't even know what he's saying. But I didn't know how to change my major again, and I kind of was, so I just kind of stayed in it. And in a little while, I kind of got depressed. I'm like, well, that was my one idea. Like, I guess I can't do it. And then I remember I was listening to a teleseminar. I was on a wrestling tournament. We were driving to California. It was like a 16-hour drive. And I downloaded on it was pre-iPods. It was like this little tape player thing, a whole bunch of teleseminars Armin had done. And I'm listening to these things in the back of the car where all the other wrestlers are like partying and having fun and like listening to music. And I was listening to these seminars, and they were totally making fun of me the whole, like, if you meet any of the wrestling buddies, like, they relentlessly made fun of me the entire trip. Like, you're such a nerd, like, you're never gonna make any money. I'm like, no, I swear I will. So I'm listening to these things the whole way, and in one of these things, like 22 hours into this thing I'm listening to, Armin says, like, yeah, I don't code software. I go to this, at the time it was called Scriptlance. I go to Scriptlance and I pay guys in Romania and India really like hardly anything to build stuff. And I was like, Armin's not a programmer? I thought he was a programmer. There are people in India that can do this? So I went to, like, literally that night, jump on Scriptlance, and actually prior to that, I tried to hire a company to do it, and they quoted me like $5,000. I was like, okay, well, I don't have that. And so I took the same description I'd given these guys, and I posted it on Scriptlance, and instantly I got all these people started bidding on it. One guy was like, I'll do it for $5,000, I'll do it for $2,000, for $1,000, for $500, and came down all the way down to this guy named Cyprian in Romania, said, I'll do it for $20. I was like, I got $20. So I picked him, and he's like, all right, so this is how I'm gonna do it. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but just do it. So he did, like, spent like 2 or 3 days, sends it back. He's like, here it is. So I tried it, and I like zipped a file, and I opened it, and my ad showed up. I was like, you did it! Oh my gosh! And he's like, yeah, thanks for the $20. I was like, no, this is gonna be huge. Like, I'm gonna make millions of dollars. I feel guilty giving you $20. Can I pay you an extra $100? And he was like, yeah. So I gave him $100, and I felt good about it. And that was my very first software product I ever did. And it didn't make me millions. I probably made, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 grand with that product. But it was the first one I had. I had a sales letter, started driving traffic. I was doing Google ads. I was finding JV products, all these things. I started selling it. And that was like the first thing that actually made me any money. Is that exciting? How many of you guys want ZipRander? The first 30 people in the back? Just kidding. No. Okay. It doesn't work anymore. The coding all stopped working like 10 internets ago, so it's done. But that was my first software product. It was so cool. About that time is when I started learning about, more about info products. That's when the Potato Gun came out, Potato Gun DVD, all these things. And I was just doing all these little businesses, and none of them were like huge, smashing, like $1 million successes. I didn't pull Dan Henry and read a book and 5 months later made $1 million. Like, I was like, hey, I made $5 grand here. Oh, I made $200 here. Oh, and these little things kept happening. And it was so cool. And every project did a little bit better. It was like kind of this like slow momentum. Like, everyone did a little bit better than the last one because I got more customers were coming in and more people. And I kept just making things in different markets, potato guns and just all these sorts of different things. And each one got a little bit better, and it was just fun. And I remember back then I started doing teleseminars, and I was like, I'd get like 30 people online, and I'd talk about something, and I'd sell it at the end, and some people would go buy it, and it was so exciting. And that was like the start of this whole thing for me. And then one of my friends, BJ, who's sitting over here, he was a wrestler in Nebraska, and I wrestled at Boise State. It was our senior year. And my senior year, I'd made pretty good money, probably $150,000, $200,000, somewhere in there, my senior year. And he'd heard about it. And so Boise State was wrestling Nebraska, and we're sitting there wrestling, and we're glaring at each other because we're opposite teams. And afterwards, he's like, hey, man, so someone told me you're making money. Is that true? And I was like, yeah. He's like, how you doing it? How you doing it? And so we kind of talked about it a little bit, and then we flew back to our places, figuring out college, and we kind of talked back and forth for a little while. And then after college got in, he's like, hey, man, I want to do what you're doing. Can I get a job? And I was like, you want a job? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, what would you do all day? He's like, I don't know, I'll do what you're doing. I'm like, okay. And can we talk about marketing stuff? He's like, oh, I love talking about it. I'm like, that'd be so cool. I have nobody to talk about this stuff. Like, I thought it was just me. I was like, so you're actually interested in this thing? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Yeah, man, I'll give you a job. So come on out. So he's like, all right. So he jumps in the plane, flies to Boise, and moves like literally into our office, slept in our office for like 6 months. And he gets there, and he's like, okay, so how does this work? I'd never really had an employee before. I'm like, I don't really know either. I'll pay you, and we can talk about marketing, then we'll sell stuff, and it'll be awesome. Now, me as an entrepreneur, I was in this mode of like, eat what you kill. Like, I'd sell something, make a bunch of money, and I was like, sweet. And then we wouldn't do anything for like 4 or 5 months, and we'd create something, sell it, make a bunch of money, and then that's kind of the model that I was on for a long time, right? And then BJ came in, he wanted to be an employee, and I was like so excited. I'm like, sure. And so he's an employee, and then the weirdest thing happened is every 2 weeks, he wanted to get paid, whether we made money or not. Like, I'd never heard that, but I was like, oh, okay, so here's some more money, and then 2 weeks later, more money. I'm like, oh crap, we haven't sold anything for like a long time. And so then, and then he had some other friends that came along that were like, this is cool, I want to work for you too. I'm like, all right, come on over, man, let's get jobs. So I gave them jobs, one of his buddies and his wife, and then some other people. And soon I was like, I got all these friends that want to talk about marketing with me. This is so fun. And so we had all these people coming over. And then, but the problem was that like every 2 weeks they wanted to get paid. And so, but we weren't selling anything. So I'd go lock myself in the back room. And I'm like, don't bug me, you guys. I got to make money so we can all hang out again. So I closed the door and I start working, and I'd be working and I'd be selling stuff. And then they'd be out there like, dude, can we help you? I'm like, shut up. Like, if you talk to me, I can't make money to pay you. So just like go away. And they're like, we really feel bad. Like, we want to help you, Russell. I'm like, I don't have time to train you because otherwise we can't make money to pay payroll. And so they just kind of, and that was like this thing. And what's interesting is this is one of my first lessons as an entrepreneur that was tough, right? And so I don't remember, I had 5 or 6 people at the time. We hired this video guy that was, there's so many side stories. I can't tell you all of them. He was an Indian guy who had shorts went up to here, and he had a braid that went past his shorts. Because he told me in the interview, he's like, yeah, I'm a video guy. I'm like, are you kidding me? We could do videos. And he's like, yeah, I got all sorts of video stuff. So we hired him, and then turned out he didn't know anything about video at all. And but I didn't dare to fire him because I'd never fired anyone. I was so scared. And like every day we're like, I wish like he would just quit. But I don't know, dare to fire him. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, oh, it was just all these weird learning things, right? And so this went on for a while. I was launching something like every week, trying to make money to cover payroll, and it's just this huge thing, and it became like horribly not fun for a long time. And it kept going worse and worse and worse until the point where it was December. It was the beginning of December. It was freezing cold, and I was looking at everything, and like every penny I'd ever made was gone. Every idea I had for like how I could hustle and like sell things to different markets like was gone, and I was just like, just drained. Like I don't even know what to do. And it was Christmas time. I was outside, and I started going to go hang up lights around my house. And I had this someone had sent me like an iPod Nano, and Stu McLaren had actually done an event. I don't know if Stu even knows this. And he had sent me the links to it. So I downloaded the links to this event on this iPod, plug it into my ears, and I started like hanging up Christmas lights, which I had never done before. It's a horrible job. Turns out you can hire people for really cheap to do that. And the lights look really straight. Mine were like it was really bad. And I kept stapling through the wire, which would then kill the lights, and it was bad. And my fingers were so numb. I had this little light coat on. I remember like, God, my fingers were so numb, and I had to have my gloves off to be able to like squeeze the thing. And so like, and I put them back in and get warm, and then I'd go back in, and I didn't really want to go inside and get warm because I was so depressed, because I knew that like the next payroll was coming up in like a week or so, and I was like, I don't have money. Like, I don't know what to do. And like tomorrow I need to go in and tell these guys, otherwise they're gonna like, it's gonna be really awkward when payroll does come, and I'm like, oh, sorry guys. So I'm like, tomorrow I have to go tell everybody this. And so I stayed outside in the cold because I didn't want to go in. And I just was trying to think. And so I'm stapling these Christmas lights around the house. So I'm listening to this audio. And in the audio, there's 2 different speakers talking about different business models. Back then, none of us called these things funnels, but they talked about these different business models, what they were doing. And one of them was an offline guy. His name is John All, and some of you guys have heard me talk about him. He's the guy that taught me about attractive character. And he said that, he's like, I have this thing that I've been doing where I create these CDs, and then I tell everyone it's so controversial that I can't put it on the internet, which is like the funniest thing ever. And he's like, so because of that, you got to pay me $5 that I will ship you the CD. And then he said, what happens is that I ship them the CD, but then that customer financed me sending them a sales letter. And I was like, dude, that is like brilliant. I'm like, we got to do that. And I remember I'd filmed the CD like 2 years earlier, or a DVD, and I was like, we could do that. We could burn that DVD and we could start sending that out. So that was the first presentation was John All. The next presentation was this guy named Matt Basak, who's become a close friend since then. And Matt was talking about his business model. He said, what I do is I send out CDs, and the people that buy the CDs, I call them on the phone, and we sell them coaching. And I was like, you can call people on the phone? Like I'm an internet nerd. I'm like, wait, you pick me? Like, and I was super scared, but I knew that there was a guy that worked for me at the time, one of those, my 5 or 6 friends who had sold things on the phone before. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, like, what if we figured out something we could do where we could like save this thing? Like, it might actually be possible. And I started getting more excited. I'm hanging up Christmas lights, I'm listening to stuff, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this plan, this like funnel was going through my head, and I'm like, okay, I think I figured out like a blend of what these 2 guys are saying could actually work. And so by the time I got to hang up Christmas lights, I texted all of them like, you guys, you don't know this yet, but we're about to go bankrupt, but I got an idea that I think can save it. Let's meet tomorrow morning early, and I'm gonna walk you guys through what I think could actually save this business. Send. And they're all like texting back like, what? Like, I know we're going through bankruptcy. Like, oh yeah, we're about to. And luckily it's okay, let's all come in. So they all came in the next day, and I was like, you guys, I think I got a model. This is what we're gonna do. I was like, remember that DVD I did like 2 years ago? We're gonna take that, and it's gonna be a free DVD. It's gonna be so controversial, we can't sell on the internet. We'll charge, I think it was $4.95 shipping and handling. And we'll send this DVD out to them. And then inside the DVD, we're gonna have a sales letter where we're gonna sell a $5,000, actually it was $5,500. I don't know why we said that price, but it's gonna be $5,500. And they're like, cool, what do we sell $5,500? I'm like, I don't know, what do you guys wanna sell? I'm like, okay, so then we had our whiteboard, and on our whiteboard, we're like, well, if someone's gonna give us $5,500, like, we'd have to be something amazing. Like, what if we did this? And we're like, and we listed down, what if we did that? And we made this huge list for like 2 hours of like all the amazingness. And I was like, that would be awesome. But I'm not willing to do half of that stuff. So I'm like, okay, we're not gonna have him sleep in my house. We're not gonna have him do it. And we kind of crossed out all these things, right? Okay. And we're like, okay, I'd actually be willing to sell this. I think people would actually buy that. Like, that would be insane. And so we took that, and then at the same time, we added a newsletter. So if somebody bought the CD, they joined a newsletter that was $37 a month. So they came from here and they joined a newsletter. It was $37 a month. And that was the funnel. Now back then we didn't have ClickFunnels, so luckily we had 1 or 2 nerds still working for us who were able to kind of put these pieces together. And we had this really rudimentary, like horrible looking funnel, but it was live within a day. And we said, okay, let's try it. And at the time I had a little tiny email list. This is pre-Facebook, it was back in MySpace days. So it was back then. We pushed some traffic to this, and we ended up selling a couple hundred of these CDs. And then in the CD, we shipped out to them. Inside, there came a sales letter talking about this. And then it put people on a continuity program. And then we called everybody about the CD and said, hey, you bought the CD. How would you like to come to Boise? And we're going to give you this. And this was our Hail Mary pass. Like, please let this work. And so we did that. We focused on it. We drove traffic to it. And when all was said and done, over the next like 2-week period of time, we got 800 people to get our free CD. From that, the way we used to do is everybody was on continuity. So we had 800 people that were on this $37 a month continuity, but it was free for a month, so we wouldn't make any money here. But we had 800 people's phone numbers who we were able to call. And so we started calling them. And we didn't know anything about phone sales or anything. We were just like, hey man, you bought the CD, you wanna come and hang out with Russell? And they're like, yeah. And in that 2-week period of time, we sold 10 people at $5,500 a piece, which ended up being $55K. And that funnel saved Christmas. Is that awesome? It was awesome. I was able to pay all of our payroll. We had some money left over. It was awesome. And the coolest thing is 30 days later, then this started, and all these people were on continuity, and suddenly we had a business. This is when I learned the power of continuity. David Fry, who's one of my favorite people in the whole world, he's in the audience here somewhere, I think. He used to always say, he's like, until you have continuity, you don't have a business. And I never understood that till this. There's David smiling over there. I love that guy. And now I found out how suddenly I had these people. And then, so what happened, I don't know the math, 800 times 37 a month, it's like $25K a month. And we knew, like, we have continuity now. Every single month we have $25K, and that means I can pay for employees. I realized, like, you don't hire employees before you have continuity. But now we have continuity. Now we actually had people covered, and we could actually focus and think. And that was the first funnel that really kind of saved things and turned it around for us.
Want more marketing secrets? If so, then go get your copies of my 2 best-selling books. Book number 1 is called Expert Secrets, and you can get a free copy at expertsecrets.com. And book number 2 is called .com Secrets, and you can get your free copy at .comsecrets.com. Inside these 2 books, you'll find my top 35 secrets that we've used to become the fastest growing non-VC-backed SaaS startup company in the world.